Hey there, so in this video we are going to install a SuperPixel using the SuperPixel kit, which is a 64 by 64 or 4096 LED display. So let's just first make sure we got all of our parts. So we got two 64 by 32 LED panels. We've got a custom power cable. We've got a laser cut mount. 5 volt 15 amp power brick, Pixel Makers Kit, including our board, some hardware, zip tie, and 2 ribbon cables. And then we're going to control this over Bluetooth using any Android phone. So you supply the phone, and then optional, if you want to control it with a Raspberry Pi, which opens up some other kind of pretty cool custom opportunities, you can mount a Pi as well. So this is optional. The Pi doesn't come with it, but I'm going to show you how to mount it as well if you want to go one step further with the Pi. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to start with our mounting kit here, mounting board. And so the first thing we need to do is take out our board. So we'll go ahead and go in here. And this is our board. This is the controller board, which is essentially the heart of the project. So here's our board, and if you look on here, it's labeled Pixel board and then also USB. So this is USB, so we want to mount it like that, not like this. So USB be pointing up, we want it pointing down. So let's take our hardware. So these are nylon screws. So we'll just do this one at a time. Put it through the bottom, and then take one of the nylon screw nuts and just put that on there. And we're just going to repeat that 4 times. Okay. So now let's just take our board and just plop it on top, like so. And then again, we're going to take these hex nuts and just pop them on. So the first set of nuts was just a spacer, so our board has enough clearance so it doesn't bow when it's mounted. So you see there's a little gap there. That's what the spacer was for. And now these ones we're just using to clamp it down. Okay, so we got our board mounted. Again, it doesn't need to be very tight, it's nice and sturdy. So at this point, let's go ahead and go back to our Pixel Makers Kit. And we're going to do 2 things. We're going to mount, or we're going to put in the SD card, and then we also need this this little guy right here, this one here. So very important actually. So this needs to go right here, and if you don't do this, the board will have no power. So don't forget to do that. And now let's go ahead and do our micro SD card. There's also a micro SD card reader. You won't actually need this unless you ever need to reflash the board. The way the board works is you can reflash the firmware by copying some files to the card from your computer, hence why you need this adapter to plug into your computer, and then you can reflash the board. But the board actually comes pre-installed with the firmware for this project, so you don't need to worry about that. So just go ahead and click in an SD card. And I guess also while we're at it, let's go ahead and plug in the USB dongle. Sorry, the Bluetooth dongle. So this project, we're going to communicate to an Android phone over Bluetooth. So that's what this is for. And so it goes this way. Let's see. Let's get this mixed up. Okay, so we'll just pop that guy in there. And then also very important, when you're looking at the toggle switch, make sure it's pointing to BT, which is on the left side, and then on the right side here it says USB. So you don't want USB, you want BT. So right now that's USB, that's BT, so we're okay. So I think that's everything with our board. Yeah, nothing else there. Oh, by the way, so this is a USB A to A cable. And so if you were using this to, instead of the Bluetooth dongle, if you wanted to connect this to a Raspberry Pi, you'd get rid of the dongle and use this USB cable. So one in here, one into your Pi, or you can hook it up to your PC. One in here, one into your PC. But right now we're just using the dongle. And then if you were to use the Pi USB, make sure you switch that to USB. But right now we're using BT. Okay, so what we'll do at this point, for right now we're not using the Raspberry Pi, but there is a mounting spot on here for the Pi. So just for fun, we're just going to ahead and mount the Pi just so I can show you where that mount is. So basically we're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to take our nylon screws, go through the bottom, just like the other one. And if you're doing the Pi, we just released a new API, which is pretty cool. So if you're a developer, you can actually control the Pixel board from a REST-based API. So basically you just make URL calls with certain parameters. And we also added a queue feature, which is really nice. So basically you can queue up different events, whether that be playing a GIF animation, playing scrolling text, playing still images for a certain amount of time. You can tell the events how long you want them to play, basically how you want them to loop, and then just queue them up and just go for it. So that is possible with the Raspberry Pi integration using the API, or connected to your PC as well. That also works. So if you're a developer, I would definitely encourage you to check out the API documentation. It's pretty nice. Okay, so now let's get our Pi. And so with the Pi, you just look for this USB. So this is USB ports on the Pi, so you just want them lined up. So you don't want it like this or like this, you want it like that. So same thing as before, we'll just plop it on there. There we go. And screw it down. All right, so our Pi is there, nice and sturdy. So let's go ahead and put in the zip tie. This will just help make the cables be a little bit cleaner. So just take your zip tie, one in through here, one in through here. And you gotta make sure you do all of this, by the way, before we mount this to the panel, because once we mount this on the panel, you're not gonna be able to get to the bottom. So make sure to do it in this order. So now what we'll do is we'll go to our panel, put this down, and we're going to turn it over. And so on the panel, you always want to make sure these arrows are pointing up. So you don't want to like this. Make sure arrows are pointing up. So that's one side. And then same thing, arrows pointing up. Okay. All right, so now we're just going to take this and just line up the holes. Okay, so we got our holes lined up. So let's start in the middle. These are M3 by 8mm screws, by the way, in case you ever lose them. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, so the LEDs look lined up pretty good. So I think we're in good shape. Now, it's actually, you'll notice that there's actually holes here. And so these holes are not actually threaded. So you could use a wood screw and just go through the plastic. But, and that's optional. I have some screws, I did it earlier. I have some screws here, but it's actually just fine without it. So we're just going to go as is. So let's put this down here, put those aside. And so now we're just going to wire it up. And so on your ribbon cables, you notice you're going to have 2 ribbon cables. One is going to be longer than the other one. So start with actually the short one here, and one end is going to go into the board, and then the other end is going to go right here. And so actually, if you look on the panel, you can actually see it says, where is it? Yeah, it's a little hard to see, but it says in right there, and over here it says out. So that's just, in case you forget, that's a visual cue. So basically we're going in, and then we're going to go out from here to the input at the bottom. So we'll go take the long cable. And these cables are notched, by the way. So if you look at it, there's a notch right here. So you cannot screw up and put them in the wrong way because of the notch. So one end here, and then let's put the other end over here. Actually, let's go this way. Okay. All right, so far so good. So we've got our ribbon cables. This is a zip tie, so we're basically going to clamp this down later once we have all the cabling in. And then this is the last hookup we need to do. This is basically power to the LED panels and to the board. So this goes into the board. So DC jack to the board here. And just you see how that looks like right there. And then these little 4-pin guys are going to go to each panel. So here's the top one. And then again, this is also notched. So you can only plug it in one way, which is very important. Okay. So that is our cabling. So it's all wired up. And let's actually hold off. Let's put the zip tie later. Let's go ahead and get power working. Let's make sure everything works before we secure it. So this is your power brick, 5 volts, 15 amps, so pretty heavy duty power supply. Let's go ahead and plug this in here. Okay. And so this female end, male end of the power supply is going to go into the female end of this custom cable. So let's just plug that in. And you can see that we have power, and then we'll have a demo image displaying on the panel. Now you notice this image is not quite the right image. It's the default image, so don't worry about that. Actually, this is the only one that's correct. These ones are wrong, but that's because we haven't told the app to use the right resolution. So what we'll do now is we'll go to your Android app, and let's go ahead and go to the Pixel app right here. And then the first thing we need to do is Bluetooth pair. So right now I can tell that I have the wrong Pixel panel settings. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to click on settings. Make sure auto select LED panel is not checked. So uncheck that, and then click on Pixel model. And what you want is Super Pixel 64 by 64. Let me just do that one more time. So Super Pixel 64 by 64. And then now the art actually will change on the app. And then there'll be a little bit of a delay. Let's give it a second here. Okay, so now it says this in the right resolution. And we can just go ahead and pick something. Let me pick an image here. There we go. So that is Super Pixel. Now just a little tip, when you're doing this over Bluetooth, there's a little bit of a lag. So if I click on one, so let's say I click on this one, it will start streaming it. But streaming it is actually pretty slow. What you really want to do is you want to write. So I'm going to hit this stop one. Again, there'll be a little bit of a delay. Let's give that a second. Okay, so once it blanks out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to long tap on the image that I want, and then I'm going to hit write right there. And so now it's actually writing that image over Bluetooth to the LED board. So this one's actually quite a few frames, so we'll just give it a minute. And then once that's done writing, it's no longer streaming Bluetooth to the board, it's actually writing to the micro SD card on the board, and then everything's playing locally without the need of the phone. So that's why it's so much faster, and so it's a bit slow over Bluetooth because the frames are pretty big for 64 by 64. So let's just set this aside for a second and let it finish its write. Okay, so our app finished writing. So now I'm going to get out of the program. So now we're no longer connected over Bluetooth. And then now that image will just be displaying, as you can see here. Okay, so that is it. The last thing is we can just do a little cable management here and tidy up our cables. So on these ribbon cables, you can actually just kind of bend them a little bit like this. And I'll do the same thing over here. And be careful when you do this though, because so there's actually screws that stick out, so you don't want to put it into one of those screws. That would not be good. And then we'll just kind of bunch everything up over here. And that's what our tie wrap is for. So I'll just get this. Make sure we got everything in here. Yeah. Oh, nope. I was missing actually. Oh. Okay, so let's do this. Let's actually go through the tie wrap. That was a good catch. Okay. Okay, so just crease that guy right there. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and tighten this guy up. Don't need to make it too tight, just enough. And then you can just take a clipper here and just clip this off. All right, that's it. That's one Super Pixel installation. Now it is pretty bright, so some users want to actually diffuse this with some acrylic on the top. This kit doesn't come with that, so if you want to diffuse it, you're on your own for that, but that's something you could do. Now, if you want to actually hang this guy on the wall, the kit comes with 2 D-hooks, and these D-hooks are a little different because you can see there they stick out, which will give you a little clearance you need for the board. So let's go ahead and just attach these D-hooks right now. You can see we've got 2 holes for them at the top, so we'll just utilize those. And when we attach the D-hook, we want it like this, not like this, because we want the D-hook to be sticking out to give us some clearance because the board sticks out a little bit. All right, so again, the cool thing about these D-hooks is they do stick out a little bit. They're not flush, but to give you a little extra room. Now for your install, you probably won't have the Pi. The Pi actually sticks out a bit more, so you probably just have this board. So that's just about enough clearance to where you can lay it on the wall pretty much flat. And then what we can do here is just take some line. In this case, I just have fishing wire, fishing line, and just tie them to these D-hooks. And then we'll use that to mount it. Okay, so there we have it. And now we can just hang this guy on the wall. And here we are hanging on the wall. So obviously you're gonna have a power cord there. You'll need to figure out what you want to do with that. But all in all, not too bad. So last thing is I'll just show you that this kit actually comes in 3 different sizes. So this is the largest size. This is the P6. And this was the original Super Pixel that was on the Kickstarter. It was nice and bright. But you can also get it in what's called a P5, which, just to give you a reference point, so here's the P5, and you can see this in relation to the P6 to give you a feel. So the P5 is still pretty big. If you don't have as much room, it's a little bit more inexpensive. The P5 is also not quite as bright, so that's also a feature depending on how you look at it. And then if you really want to go small, you can go P3. So P3 is these guys. So those are P3s, 3mm pitch. So 3 different sizes of super pixel. This happens to be the largest size, but if you're limited on room or you just want something smaller, those are options. And the last thing I want to show you actually is we've been working on a project with arcade installers to do an LED marquee. So I've taken some of that same art and now I've added that to the Android app so you can get that too. So imagine this is in an arcade machine. This is the marquee, which is typically just a sign, but the arcade guys wanted to have a marquee that changed to match the game. So let me give you a quick demo of this. And by the way, so I could have also mounted this. So this is, mounted like this, but I could have taken one here and put one over here and mounted it horizontally like this. So let me show you the marquee art. So, oh, by the way, there is no on and off switch. So to turn it off, you just unplug this guy. Okay, so no on and off switch, just unplug here. So I'm gonna take that same, let's move this out of the way actually. Oops. Okay, so here is this guy. So it's basically, this is the same smaller P3 panels I showed you, just like this, okay? And so this one just already mounted, so you can see the back here. And I'm going to plug this guy in. This is actually art from pinball. So the old pinball machines in the 80s had a little LED display. So that's actually pinball art. But let me show you here. Let's go to the app. Okay, so you notice this is wrong. So what I want to do is I want to go here, just like we did before. I want to go to Pixel Model, and I want to pick Arcade Marquee 128 by 32. I'm going to just do that one more time. So Pixel Model, Arcade Marquee 128 by 32. And then make sure Auto Select is off. And then now I'll see a bunch of artwork. So now this is correct. I'll see a bunch of artwork from the arcade guys. So these are pretty cool, right? So all the favorite games from the 80s. Let's get a better look. So I've got about, I think almost 100 of them now, actually. So this artwork is also included in the app. You can use it, but you would need to install it like this horizontally instead of stacked vertically. That totally you could do. The cables are long enough. It's just how you want to install it. So you can see from the app, there's quite a bit of, let's do Joust. And this artwork has all been a lot of effort. Actually did all these manually. So this isn't just cut and paste. This is actually re-authored in 8-bit format. And so 1 pixel at a time. Each one of these took me about half an hour to an hour to do. It's pixel perfect to fit this display. All in, low resolution 8-bit style. Let me show you Pac-Man. That's a pretty cool one. Mario Brothers. Dig Dug. There we go. That's the one I wanted to show you. Okay, so that's also an option. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for checking it out. Bye.